Good afternoon. The November 12th Planning Board meeting is now in order. Please take roll.
I'll do it. There you go. Board Member Stamps. Here. Board Member Barker. Absent. And Board Member Rich. Sorry.
Here.
new to saying that. And then Board Member Carroll is absent as well.
Chairman Newbauer is here.
And Chairman Newbauer, I'm sorry. New to saying that.
Savannah, will you do minutes for me?
All right, are there any changes or deletions to the agenda? None? We have minutes from October meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, please take roll.
Board Member Stamps.
Yes.
Board Member Rich.
Yes.
Chairman Newbauer.
Yes. I'm going to read through the process for quasi-judicial proceedings. The following is the procedure which the board will follow during quasi-judicial hearings. Public hearing announced, introduction of application by staff, ex parte communication disclosure by board members, identification of applicant and affected parties that intend to participate in the hearing. Affected parties that only intend to make a statement may do so at the public participation part of the agenda. An affected party means any person or entity that will suffer an adverse effect to interest protected or furthered by the University ULDC, including interests related to health and safety, police and fire protection, service systems, densities or intensities of development, transportation facilities, healthcare facilities, equipment or services, and environment or natural resources. The alleged adverse interests may be shared in common with other members of the community at large, but must exceed in degree the general interest in community good shared by all persons. Now, swearing of witnesses.
Yes, so quasi-judicial proceedings are similar to a court proceeding, meaning that we're going to have parties that the applicant will present, and then staff will make a presentation, and then those folks who are affected parties or just members of the public that want to speak will have an opportunity to speak. Every item on the agenda, with the exception of items F, which is the text amendment regarding residential land use, and H, which is the transportation impact fee study, are all quasi-judicial proceedings this evening. So if you are here to speak on any item, with the exception of those two, and you plan to come to the microphone and address the board, then I need you to stand now and be sworn in. Or if you're already standing, just raise your right hand.
Will it be optional later, or we have to stand at this point? All right.
No, well,
That's
it's
compelled or whatever. Okay.
if you don't, I'm going to make you swear in, so you might as well do it now. If you can always not talk. So if you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony that you'll give in these matters will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God? Yep. All right. When you come to the podium at that time, if you come to the podium, please state your name and address for the record and that you have been sworn. Okay? And that doesn't mean that if somebody feels compelled at that time to come forward, you can and we'll swear you in, but you will need to be sworn in on those items. Mr. Chairman?
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to request A, Orlando.
Case number VAR 2501 is the applicant is seeking a variance from the residential one front yard setback requirements. The applicant is requesting to reduce the front yard setback from the required 20 feet to 9 feet. The owner is Molten Systems, Inc., or Mark Mulligan, and the address is 1102 West 11th Street.
Any questions for staff from the board? Is the applicant here to address this item? Please go to the microphone, state your name and whether you've been sworn in.
I was sworn in. My name's Mark Mulligan. I live at 1106 West 11th Street, which is right next door. And what we're trying to do is I started to work on the development of the site plan a little bit before the new planning director was here. And the whole idea was we're going to build these houses here, since it's on 11th Street, was to create a design to where we only have one entrance and one exit for the four houses, and not have four houses back out onto 11th Street. Because it gets sort of congested on 11th Street. All the houses to the west of us and keep going, they do back out because there's no other way to go. You pull them back out. So that's why we had the lots subdivided. We've already built 2 houses. We have a development order on the 3rd house, and this 1 house we need to, just to stay and conform with what we're already doing, that's why we're making this request for the variance.
Thank you. Any questions from board?
Is that setback from the road going to be the same as the house that's already on the
Yes.
property on the left? Okay,
It'd be identical.
okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Is anyone else here from the audience wish to speak on this item? Please.
Hi, Mark. My name's Mark, too. I attend the church across the street, and the members of the church think you've done a great job with the first 2 houses.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Our one question is, because you've pushed the setback much closer to the street, the houses are closer, and right now the fence on the brand-new house is right up against the sidewalk. Do you have any plans to maybe add some landscaping or something?
Actually, we did, but.
Mr. Mulligan?
Is there any other questions you want to add? And we'll just get him to come back to that microphone and address all at once.
Okay, yeah, I think that's it. Just that because we're pushing the setback forward, right now the fence line is right at the edge of the concrete, so it's a little tight for pedestrians.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak on this item? All right, applicant, please feel free to come to the microphone and
Yeah,
address this.
yes, we're not encroaching in the sidewalk at all. We have a retaining wall there, and then we have a fence on top of the retaining wall. So we're not encroaching on the sidewalk at all. We have not decreased any sidewalks.
I think you had a question on landscaping as well.
Yeah, we had some landscape. We had some vines and stuff growing up, but the city came down and cut them all down. So, but we're trying to do some. We're going to try to do some more.
Okay, thank you. All right, do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
I'll second.
All right, please take roll.
Board Member Stamps,
Yes.
Board Member Rich,
Yes.
Chairman Newbauer,
Yes. All right, request B, what you want?
Request B is a request for the recommendation of approval for the Parkbrook subdivision. This is phase 1. The development order was approved back in February earlier this year, and now the developer comes before the board and ultimately the city commission to seek approval for Parkbrook phase 1. I believe the developer, the applicant is here if you have any questions, and of course staff is here if you have any questions for us.
Board have any questions?
I'm assuming everything in the plat layout conforms with the development order, the original development order.
Correct.
Is anyone in the audience here to address this? Seeing none, do you have a motion?
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Please take roll.
Board Member Stamps,
Yes.
Board Member Rich,
Yes.
Chairman Newbauer,
Yes. All right, item C, what you want to get?
So item C is for the recommendation of approval request for Parkbrook subdivision phase 2. So both of these phases were both approved together back in February, and so the developer is seeking now to have them both come together side by side before the board and the commission. So this is for phase 2. And again, the developer is here if you have any questions, and of course staff is also happy to answer any questions you might have for phase 2.
Great. Is anyone here to address item C? All right, seeing none, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Please take roll.
Board Member Stamps,
Yes.
Board Member Rich,
Yes.
Chairman Newbauer,
Yes. Item D, Michael.
Item D, or 6D, is a request to abandon portion of a right-of-way or alleyway located at or behind 501 and 515 East Beach Drive. I'm sorry, the case number was VROW 2484. It is just the segment of alleyway located behind 501 and 515 East Beach Drive, which is owned by GM Hobbs and Patrick Jones. This is, the next public hearing will be at the City Commission on December 10th, and the final public hearing, final reading public hearing will be January 14th at the City Commission. We'll answer any questions that y'all have. The city is requesting to retain an easement for the sewer line that extends along this section of the alleyway in place of the abandonment. And then a map, well, it's up on the screen. It just shows it's the western section of the alleyway that they're requesting to abandon.
And the proof of conditions is that?
Yes,
any
approval
easement
with
back.
condition, and the condition is that they provide us with a utility easement for the sewer.
Any questions for staff?
What prompted the request?
The request came from the property owner, which I believe is here, and could better answer that than I can.
Hello, I've been sworn in. My name is Patrick Jones. I live at 515 East Beach Drive. What prompted this request is an effort to secure the property. We have had experiences with criminal elements on that alleyway, a couple run-ins, and we've been able to, the way that it sets up, they can come within about 15 feet of the back door. Where the corner of the alleyway is actually comes up within about 20 inches of a probably 150-year-old oak tree. So the ability to set a post at the edge of the right-of-way is very difficult. Since it's 14 feet, 90-degree turn, there are no trucks, there are no vehicles that can make that turn. The radius is too tight. There's no trash picked up on the street. There's no activity on the street on any regular basis. The only use of the property from a city perspective is for that sewer line per se, of which that's why we're happily going to allow an easement or request an easement. There would be a gate. City officials or city staff would always have access to it, not dissimilar to the lift stations that you see all over town. So the goal is to offer unimpeded access from the city perspective and an opportunity to secure the property. Mr. Hobbs and I own the properties that are on both sides of everything of this alleyway. And on top of that, the alleyway does turn left, so there is still egress out into public right-of-way. It does not become a dead end. So it's one of those things that it allowed for a security of the property. It did not appear to do any harm, so the request was made.
Thank you. Any questions?
And I will add that our solid waste or environmental services team has confirmed that they do not use that alleyway for trash pickup because, like the applicant stated, they can't make that 90-degree turn. So.
Is anyone from the audience here to speak on this item?
Yes, I do. Yes, my name is Francie Bean, and I live at the opposite end. I've been sworn in. I live at the opposite end of the alley that we're talking about. The reason why there is a big left turn is somebody put a fence up. They've tried to close this alley before. My neighbor, who lives at 207 Harmon, Becky Daffin could not be here. She also is in the same agreement with me. If they close the alley, they need to close the entire alley instead of having traffic on our end backing up and coming in. I don't see why one person gets to benefit from closure of the alley. Nobody else does. So I disagree with closing the alley unless they close the entire alley.
Thank you. Anyone else here to speak on this item? Is the applicant wish to respond to that? Or don't need to, I'll just give them the opportunity to. You're just asking for the
Yeah, I was
west
about to
portion.
say, we didn't have an interest in trying to do the entire thing because of the fact that other people do utilize it for their access. Just wanted this other piece of the alleyway that nobody utilizes for their access except for Mike and myself.
Thank you.
And then just to be clear, this one will go to the city commission for another reading.
That's correct. The abandonment has to be done by ordinance, so that requires 2 readings in front of the city commission. And that's scheduled for December 10th and January 14th.
Right, good.
Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
All right, please take roll.
Board Member Stamps?
Yes.
Board Member Rich?
Yes.
Chairman Newbauer?
Yes. And this again goes to the city commission for December 10th and January 14th, second readings. First reading December 10th, second reading January 14th. Item E, Orlando.
Item E is case number CPMA 2504. The applicant has requested an annexation, a small-scale land use amendment, and rezoning to General Commercial 2. The owner and applicant is Garrett Family Holdings, and the address is 2626 West 23rd Street, and it's approximately 0.895 acres.
Any questions for staff?
So this is currently in Bay County and currently has a commercial, like similar commercial
Correct.
zoning. Is the intended use of the building going to change?
They didn't provide that information. They just asked for the annexation and the zoning for GC2.
Is the applicant here wishing to address this? Mr.
I'm
McNeil.
Sean McNeil, Carroll Engineering, representing the applicant. The 0.9 acres obviously is enclave in the county into the city. It will remain the same business. Any other questions? Thank you.
Is anyone else here to speak on this item? All right, seeing none, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Please take roll.
Board Member Stamps?
Yes.
Board Member Rich?
Yes.
Chairman Newbauer?
Yes. Item F. Michael.
This is case number LDCA 2505, which is a text amendment to the Unified Land Development Code, specifically Section 104-26, which is the R1 residential zoning district. This request actually originated from the City Commission, which asked staff to explore reducing the minimum lot size required in the R1 zoning district. Currently, R1 requires at least 6,000 square feet minimum lot size. This is for newly platted properties. This does not affect any existing residential lots, residential neighborhoods. I'll just mention that because that question did come up at the commission meeting. So we've done some research and found, and there's a memo included in your agenda packets. We went and looked at a bunch of different existing platted subdivisions and found that there are typical lot sizes that range from anywhere from 10,000 square feet to as small as 3,000 square feet. The county R1 also requires 5,445 minimum lot size. As y'all are aware, because of the current situation, we get a lot of requests from folks, especially if they're annexing into the city and they're zoned R1 in the county. They want to keep that level of entitlements or density. And so to do so, they end up requesting R2, which, as you know, allows for townhomes, duplexes, and triplexes, which most people are opposed to having that type of structures. So to basically correct that, we're also requesting to lower the minimum lot size from 6,000 to 5,000 square feet. And also, as we're looking at making the minimum lot size slightly smaller, we also are requesting that y'all look at some of the other bulk regulations like lot widths or lot frontage and some of the setbacks. And we've provided what our recommendation is in terms of those other requirements. In the rear, instead of having a 25-foot setback, reducing it to 20. For lot frontage or which is the width on the road right of way, reducing it to 50 feet instead of 60, or if it's a corner lot, 60 instead of 70. Those are our recommendations. Again, this is something that originated from staff was directed by the city commission to work all this up. So that's why we're here.
Thank you. Any questions?
Michael, if the R1's for single detached, what's the thought of going from 5 dwelling units per acre to 10?
So the reducing the minimum lot size will obviously increase the density. The thought behind, which would be about 8 units per acre roughly, which is what the county requires or allows. The reason why we suggested 10 is because that's what the underlying future land use district allows, up to 10. If y'all rather keep that at 8, that's fine too, but this is just our recommendation.
Is anybody here to speak on this item from the audience? Okay. Any other questions from the board? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Derek Thomas, 1100 West 10th Street. I swear and affirm that everything I say is truthful and accurate. I've seen a lot of neighborhoods that I thought were R1 neighborhoods that now have like driveways and houses that pretty much touch the road, and it changes the environment of the neighborhood that they're put into. If you're not allowed to go in and change what is already plotted, that's something I have just now heard of. But when you increase the density, it changes the neighborhood. So I would urge you to consider that before you just, do the setbacks changes and stuff, and allow people to just increase the density in R1 neighborhoods. If it's going to be plotted as R2, then it should just be plotted as R2. And if it's going to be R1, it should remain R1 and not be changed. Thank you.
Thanks. This only applies to new plats, correct?
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Yes. Mhm.
Yeah, that question came up by one of the commissioners, so I do try to answer it in the memo. What our land development code says, that if a lot was a subdivided lot of record and was usable as a conforming single-family residential building site at the time of recording, the lot may be used and occupied for a single-family dwelling and its accessory structures, provided that they meet setbacks. So all these existing platted lots are protected.
Okay, thank you. All right. Anyone else wish to speak on this item?
Michael, does the math support going to 10 dwelling units per acre with the setbacks that are proposed in here? Is that even possible with the mathematics of it?
It is.
Okay.
But if y'all want to look at further reducing those setback requirements, that's something that maybe y'all want to entertain. We do have pretty stringent setback requirements of like 25 feet in the rear. That's pretty stringent when you compare it to other similar zoning districts in other localities.
And if the setbacks, if the property is adjacent to other zoning, then there's a completely different set of setbacks for the other zoning too. So. Any other questions? All right. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, please take roll.
Board Member Stamps?
Yes.
Board Member Rich?
Yes.
Chairman Newbauer?
Yes.
Chairman, before we address the next item, can you give me about 5 minutes to
Sure.
step outside? Yeah.
We'll take a quick recess. If anybody we recognize most of the people in the room are here for item G. If anyone here was for earlier items, feel free to exit at your convenience. So.
Would you repeat what you just said?
Everybody is good. Good.
We're reconvening the meeting.
Please take your seats. We're reconvening the meeting. If you don't have a seat, I'm sorry.
Give me to speak to that real quick.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. I just want to address, we've got obviously you can tell we've got a full capacity here this evening. Sergeant Thorpe was paying attention to our capacity count and was keeping people outside in order to maintain the Thorpe and Chief Demereaux are here, and they are acting as our fire watch, and we're okay to proceed for the time. I just wanted to make sure that we were okay when I saw the chief show up. So thank you for those few minutes, and we can proceed now.
Okay. Do you want to address?
Yes. Okay. So the next item is I think the one that everybody's here for this evening, unless you're all real important and interested in transportation impact fees, and I doubt that's the case. Although you should be. So the next item will be the development agreement for the Beck Avenue group. We are going to, it is a quasi-judicial proceeding, and because of the number of people here this evening, we will follow a little closer than what we've been doing so far, the procedures that are set forth in the agenda. And so with that, what we'll begin is, first of all, how many people, just by a show of hands, are here to speak on this item, that are planning to show up and talk on the microphone? Got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so we don't have that many. We got a lot more spectators than we do speakers this evening. And so what we'll do is I recommend we follow the procedure that we have outlined. And so the outline will be first, we've already sworn witnesses in. The first, we're going to have the applicant, which is represented by Mr. Obos, will make his presentation. If there are affected parties, and that's listed in the definition of an affected party is in the agenda, you can read that. Then you can come up and you can make your case as to why you're an affected party. And if you indeed are, then you can have the 5 minutes available. If you just want to get up and speak on this because you live in St. Andrews, you're interested in it, you are going to have an opportunity to speak, and you'll get 3 minutes to speak. We just ask that you not be redundant of one another. If someone has already said what you planned on saying, you need to come up and say that in the microphone so we can get it on the record. We cannot ask for a show of hands of who all agrees with that. If you want to speak and get it on the record, you need to get up and speak, but you could simply say, I agree with the last speaker. At that time, then, when we close with the public participation part of it, then the applicant will have another opportunity to address the board, and then the board will deliberate.
Thank you.
Good?
All right, Michael, item G.
All right. Mr. Chairman and board members, this is item 6G, case number DEVA 2506. This will be the first of 2 required public hearings for the proposed development agreement for the 8 parcels located at 1104, 1106, 1121 Bayview Avenue, 1101, 1109, 1117, and 1127 Beck Avenue, and finally 3014 West 11th Street. The site or the subject property that is subject to the proposed development agreement is bordered by Beck Avenue to the east, Bayview Avenue to the west, 11th Street to the south, and 11th Court to the north. There's a map included with your agenda packets, and for those in attendance, it's on the screen. Hopefully everybody can see that. The next public hearing is scheduled for the City Commission meeting on December 10th. A notice has been posted on the property, and notices have been mailed out to all adjacent property owners lying within 300 feet of the subject property. The applicant is proposing a development agreement on behalf of the owners of the subject property in an effort to preserve the development standards of the current zoning district, which is St. Andrews District, as provided in section 104-34 of the Unified Land Development Code for a 10-year period. The proposed development agreement will allow the property owners the right to develop to 100 feet plus 25 feet for roof and mechanical equipment, as currently allowed in the St. Andrews District, with the exception of any building constructed in the first 100 feet of the property adjacent to Beck Avenue. Any building constructed in this first 100 feet of Beck Avenue will be limited to 4 stories. The proposed development agreement will apply to development of all 8 parcels as a single project rather than individual or piecemeal development of the 8 parcels. Section 102-35E of the Unified Land Development Code states the following for development agreements. To provide flexibility and to ensure that the intent of the Unified Land Development Code is satisfied, the city may enter into development agreements with a development agreement with a developer. Development agreements shall be governed by the provisions of Florida Statute 163-3220 through 163-3243 as amended. Staff believes that the proposed development agreement meets the minimum statutory requirements and requests that the planning board in its capacity as the local planning agency conduct a public hearing and provide a recommendation to the city commission on the proposed development agreement. I'll be happy to answer any questions too.
Do you have any questions for staff yet?
Any board members have questions for staff?
One thing we did forget to do at the beginning of this is for you all to make your ex parte disclosures. If you've had any conversations or any ex parte disclosures to make at this point in time regarding this particular subject, now would be the time to do it.
I have visited the properties that are around there and walked around the block and done measurements. I did not have conversations with anybody, but I did visit that location.
Okay.
I've only received email communications, which were to the entire planning board and planning department. So.
Yeah, and all of those have been made part of the record too. So, all right, thank you very much. Mr. Obos?
Yeah. Kevin Obos from Hand, Dahl, Harrison Sale, representing the property. And again, there's several property owners here. There's 8 parcels, as you guys know. My primary client are the McVeigh Trust and the Bayview St. Andrews LLC, which owns 5 of the 8. I've got limited representation agreements from 2 of the other parcels, and the Masonic Lodge is still pending. My client's going to have a meeting in December with them. Obviously, keeping in mind, none of this would be official until the city commission approves it and gets everybody's signatures before it gets recorded. So, and my client can speak a little bit more to his conversations he's had with the Masonic Lodge. But just to be clear, there are eight parcels, and most of the time you come here with development agreements. The developers are asking for concessions and things like that. This one is really more preemptive. We're only here because of these neighborhood districts that are, coming down the pike from the city commission. I know none of them have been adopted formally yet, but we've heard they're coming, and so, our clients want to really just preserve the status quo of, as Michael said, the St. Andrews downtown district, which is what it's currently zoned. So you have the 100 feet plus the 25 mechanical, all the different mixtures of allowed uses, the 35 dwelling units per acre. We just want to maintain that. We did ask, I think originally we asked for 20 years. Under the Florida statutes, you can get up to 30. We asked for 20. The staff said, let's try to go with 10 to be consistent with a similar development agreement you guys passed a year or so ago for another developer down the road. But I think he's a little bit farther along. We would ask as a compromise to maybe approve or recommend approval for 15 years, just because we do have, again, 8 different parcels, 3 or 4 different property owners to kind of cobble together. And we did agree to add language in the draft development agreement. As Michael said, it would be an all or nothing. It's not going to be piecemealed. So this would only apply if that city block was developed as one singular development and not 8 different parcels or 3 different parcels. So it would be all or nothing. And we've also agreed to concede on some of the height requirements on the Beck Avenue side. So, right now, if we just wanted status quo, because we're not adjacent to any residential, we would be able to get the 100 plus the 25 for the whole parcel. We understand, the vision that the city's wanting to go there, and so my client was fine saying, look, let's do the 4 stories on the Beck Avenue side, which would be, draw a 100-foot strip along Beck Avenue, agree to the 4-story limitation there, but keep the status quo of the 100 on the Bayview side, and really no other asks, I think, from the developer side. We're not trying to, talk about anything else or anything about the densities or intensities. It's really just, we want to protect what the rights are as we stand here today, only because the city, not our client, but the city has proposed these neighborhood districts, which is really, a rezoning or a downzoning, and could reduce the value and the vested rights of these property owners and these parcels, which, they've been paying taxes on the highest and best use for all these years. And so if it gets down zoned and now you can only do 4 stories everywhere and maybe not have some of the same uses, it would be less valuable. And your attorney is aware of all the, legal stuff that can go on, which we're trying to avoid. And so we know there's a little bit of an unknown. We don't know, what the city is going to wind up with on these neighborhood districts. But when we've seen the proposals and again, we just want to be clear, we're not asking to rezone anything or change any land uses. We just want to leave it as is. And that is the currently existing St. Andrew district, with the concessions that we would go to 40 feet on the Beck Avenue side, and it would be an all or nothing deal. So, I mean, really no other magic to it. And I know my client's here. He can answer any questions or make a presentation as well. But if you guys have anything for me, let me know.
Ms. Robus, is there any current plans for construction or demolition of any properties in that area?
Not that I'm aware of. My client might know if some of the neighbors are trying to do anything. This is really, again, preserve their rights for hopefully 15 years, maybe 10. It depends what you guys agree to. And then really kind of, put this together as one singular project that, you could tell some developer, if it's not them, you could tell a developer, hey, this whole city block has this zoning. It's good for 10 years or good for 15 years, and develop it all at once. So I'm not aware if there's any immediate plans for any work on any of the parcels. But yeah, they're nowhere near developing, sort of the vision that they would have for an all encompassing city block development.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. One more question. Does the current draft show 15 years or does it show 10 years?
I think it has 10 with a note from the city attorney in there that we asked for 20, staff proposed 10. So now we're asking for 15. So.
Copy. Thanks.
Can we ask questions from the audience?
Yeah, I'm going to get in that next. We'll give the applicant out.
And again, my client's here, Mr. McVeigh, so if you want to hear from him.
Okay. Now take questions from the audience. Please come to the microphone and state your name and are you going to swear it in? Oh, go ahead. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
McVeigh go first if he wants to speak.
Good afternoon, John McVeigh, 236 Woodlawn Drive, Panama City Beach. And I just wanted to read a prepared statement from my family that's owned the property for over 30 years and what our plans are. So for those who don't know me, my name's John McVeigh, and we've been involved in the community for over 30 years. I'm here to dispel the misinformation about the meeting and the future of St. Andrews and to help you understand exactly what the meeting is about. I've been hearing all sorts of untrue things. We've been hearing all sorts of rumors in the last 3 or 4 days that just don't make a whole lot of sense. Let me make this clear. We are not trying to change the zoning or change any laws. We're here asking to preserve the existing land use regulations, preserve the heights as they are today, which are on Beck Avenue are 100 feet and on Bayview 100 feet and 8 stories. We want the same opportunity as the others to use the present day 2024 zoning laws when it comes our turn to fix up the block and the property and replace the buildings that no longer have any useful life and must be torn down or rebuilt to today's standards. None of the buildings on our block are categorized as historical. These are all built in the 50s, the 60s. There's nothing that's in the historical designated zone like some of the properties in St. Andrews. A bit of our family history in Panama City. In mid-90s, my family came to Panama City and bought dilapidated and old buildings and some vacant land on Beck Avenue and Bayview. There was nobody on Beck Avenue or Bayview when we got here. There was one tenant on the whole block, and he was not a very good tenant. So we kind of inherited and bought just vacant buildings. My mom and dad worked hard to repair and get the property in shape, to rent to small businesses, and put my dad's law office there where we helped many in the community without asking for a dime. That was my dad, and we continue to do this today. We do a lot for the community over the last 33 years I've been here. We also volunteered at the Civic Center. My dad is the founding member of the St. Andrews Mardi Gras and started many wonderful events and inspired the community through a through today. The Irish Parade and the St. Patrick's Day Festival, we started all that down there and brought a lot of people to St. Andrews at our dime. We paid for everything. We have contributed blood, sweat, and tears in the community for close to 35 years, especially in the years since Hurricane Michael. We have fought to rebuild the heart and the soul of the area and keep St. Andrews salty. We're asking to keep the zoning restrictions as they stand today for our property for the next 15 years, so that when the time comes to move forward, we'll be able to speak clearly and with a clear understanding as to what we can build on our property. I think it's obvious we all care about our neighborhoods, and when the time comes, the commission and other entities will oversee the plans and the infrastructure. We're just here for height restrictions. Also, when the time comes, we'll have to incorporate parking in our design, which is very important. You can't put parking garages and different things like that up when you're talking about 2 or 3 or 4 stories. You got to have a place for people to park. Well, also important note is that we're not in a residential area per se. That is, there are no single-family homes near us. So we're all in a commercial district, and everything around us is commercial. This does not mean that in the future we wouldn't incorporate sub-residential. Today, many people like to work and live hand in hand. This is and has been a pedestrian walking area with local businesses, restaurants, shops, local business professionals, owners, arts and crafts, bars, and entertainment. So looking back at what we've done over there is we created that block where it's viable today. You can see by the prospering people that are there, living there, the residents and the commercial space. Thank you for hearing me out, and I hope you all have a clear picture of what the zoning meeting is about and we want to accomplish. I also invite anyone here that would like to speak with me to please call me directly. I'm happy to answer any questions and discuss any issues. Thanks again for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. If anyone has any questions, I'll be more than happy to give it a shot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Does anyone in the audience wish to speak on this item? Please come forward, state your name, address, and whether you've been sworn in.
Hi, my name is Robert Britson. I live at 3001 West 10th Street in Panama City, and I am not sworn in yet.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, first of all, I'd like to clear up something. The way I read the St. Andrews zoning district regulations, it indicates that no structure height shall exceed 100 feet plus 25. However, in the neighborhood downtown zoning district, it sets the maximum height on the property under consideration at 4 stories. Now, this gentleman has just indicated that it would be zoned for the 100 feet on Bayview, but I didn't see that written in the thing that's on your website, and I'm looking at a drawing here that I printed from the website that shows where the downtown neighborhood is, and this block is right in the middle of it, as he said. The whole area down there is, I think, conforming to the current zoning height of the 4 stories, and so I know my objections would go away in a heartbeat if he indeed was going to keep the 4 stories, but it sounds like he wants to keep 4 stories for 100 feet and then go 10 feet, 10 stories, so 100 feet up, and that just isn't fitting the character of this neighborhood. You know, this is a kind of a historical area that, you know, has low-rise structures, and so to me, to stick a 100-foot tall plus 25 in this block would be totally out of character with the whole rest of the downtown area. So that's one issue. The other issue is parking was mentioned, and there's a big difference if you have a 10-story building there. Parking, are you going to hide the parking in the first floors of the building, or what is proposed as far as parking? And lastly, I would say that this issue of a high-rise hotel or similar structure was brought up when the marina project was being evaluated recently, and You know, there was a lot of problems with introducing something that tall in this area. You know, this isn't like over by the Indigo Hotel where you have a lot of room and it's set back from the downtown area, so there's space to absorb, you know, the mass of that kind of structure. So I guess I would just like to hear why we're going to try to stick 100-foot tall, 10-story building in here in a place that's got 1- and 2-story buildings all around it, and what are we going to do about parking? Because parking's a problem already. Thank you.
Thank you. Does staff want to address the question that came up that the existing zoning is actually that's proposed?
So the current zoning of the property and actually surrounding properties is St. Andrews Downtown District. The current zoning allows for heights of 100 feet plus 25 feet for roofing and mechanical equipment. The city has been in the process of adopting a zoning maps recommended out of the neighborhood plan workshops that we've been doing. Those zoning districts would restrict, once adopted, restrict building height to 4 stories in this particular location. But that has yet to be done. That is to come. So as the applicant had mentioned, knowing that's coming, he wants to try to preserve the current height requirement before that happens.
Thanks, which this board's done at least one other instance along with the commissioner.
Can I make one point real quick? I mean, just realistically, this is a little over 2 acres. And so if we're just trying to preserve the development rights. It's a 35 dwelling unit per acre right now, which is what we'd be willing to lock in for the 10 or 15 years. So, I mean, the maximum number of dwelling units you could get is a little over 70 anyway. So, you know, realistically, I don't see a 10-story structure going on there. Obviously, you would probably need to go more than 4, especially if you're going to do ground level parking or 2 levels of parking and then put 4 stories. So now you're at 6 stories, you know. So, but realistically, with a little over 70 potential units, you're not going to get, unless they're just gigantic, penthouses, you're not going to get near the 125 feet. And also, again, this is just preserving our development rights. There are no, plans or drawing. There's some conceptual renderings that are bouncing around, but there are no plans. There's no plan to put a 10-story building there right now. We're just trying to preserve these rights for the future. But I just wanted to mention the 35 units an acre is going to really limit what you could put there anyway.
Thank you.
And there's also mention about parking. Again, this would preserve the current zoning district requirements, the St. Andrews Downtown District, which requires any new development to meet the parking standards in Chapter 108 of the Land Development Code. So our standard parking requirements or minimum parking requirements.
Okay, which the neighborhood plans actually reduce.
Which the neighborhood plans reduce, but again, this would preserve.
This would stick with this. Okay. Does anyone else like to address this item? Come forward, state your name, and whether you've been sworn in.
My name is Bob Livingston. I live at St. Andrews, and I've not been sworn in.
You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do.
You have 3 minutes.
Yeah. I think the thing that makes St. Andrews so special is the way it looks right now. Putting in a building of that structure is putting the old right next to the new, and it would change the whole environment 100%. I don't think that that's something that would add much value to where we live right now, and I think it would distract from everybody when they walk through our town to see a building of that size standing next to all of the current buildings that are currently in place. I think it would completely distort the skyline of that area, and just as many people were opposed to doing a building on the marina, I think the same arguments stand here in terms of what the appearance would be and how it would distort what we currently have. The thing that makes Old Florida special is the buildings that are there right now. And taking that away and putting in something modern would be like putting six fingers on a hand, as far as I'm concerned. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on this?
James Pigg, 2508 West 9th Street. I haven't been sworn in.
Solemnly swear from the testimony you're about to give to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes. I just have a question. I was under the understanding that in a building like this developed on Beck Avenue, that the bottom floor has to be retail. Is that part of the comprehensive plan?
No, not necessarily. It encourages live-work units where retail is on the bottom and residential units are on top, but it's currently not a requirement.
Well, I think on Beck Avenue, Beck Avenue, the additional requirements are, right, the ground floor is commercial, retail, or office, just on Beck. I think that's what
Okay.
I'm saying.
I think, all right, I misunderstood.
I believe that would have to be 25 feet minimum, correct?
For 20, like the first floor would be 24.
Yeah, 24.
Sorry, I misunderstood the question.
Does anyone wish to speak on this?
Just a lady kind of here.
Hey, my name is Susan Warren, and I have a fear of public speaking, so this is really my heart here. I have a house at 2315 West Beach Drive, and I have one on the river too, so I kind of split my time between the two of them. My father came here from an island between Sweden and Finland back in the 40s, and he started developing St. Andrews. We still have about 25 properties there now. We had to sell off a lot when he got sick with Parkinsonism and then later developed Alzheimer's, and we had to care for him. He had a 50 to begin with. He had boats at the Smith Yacht Basin back when it looked like the old shrimp boat. What I'm really worried about is we're going to lose. How many of you have ever been to the Keys, Key West? We've got the same quaint feeling in St. Andrews. I mean, I don't like some parts of Key West, but I love the historical aspects. And was it the scuba man? He gave me his book before that had the house on the corner of the property that we're talking about. How could that not be historic? I mean, he put so much into our community. I know we've got people here that own it now, but it does have a huge history. I've lived in the St. Andrews area. He was my neighbor, George Baker. We grew up on Calhoun Avenue. I'm 67, so I've been around a long time. What I'm really worried about is if my understanding is what has been clarified, the 10-story with the 25 more, that's just, I mean, we've lost it. We've lost all of the integrity of St. Andrews if that happens. Is there some sort of referendum or something where all the people can be involved and not just a few sitting here making a decision? Can't we collect ballots where people can have it put on up for the next election if we have 10% of the voters for Panama City to sign, that it can be something we all decide on and not just a few people? As far as height limits and that sort of thing. I know it was attempted before, but what does that mean, referendum? I taught ESC for 30-something years. I'm not the smartest person here. I'm probably on the level that most of my children were, but it's got to be something that can be done and not just sit back and say, we're going to accept this. I mean, it's wrong. I'm sorry, but I want us to see what happened. We went to Panama City Beach when we were children. You could ride horses. This guy's got pictures riding horses over the sand dunes from what used to be Petticoat Junction or whatever that everybody has all those wonderful memories. But when you go there now, it's just totally changed. And all right, I'll quit talking. I've probably used my time, but please think with your heart and not your mind so much as far as the history here and what we have at stake. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Sandy Marlisa. I live in Lynn Haven. I'd like to follow everybody and be sworn in.
You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're to give be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, thank you.
You have 3 minutes.
First of all, love what you just said. love your heart, love your passion. I don't think you're stupid. I think you're echoing exactly what most people in this room feel and what they think, especially anybody that knew Bay County before it became what it is now. Thank you. Second of all, there is a logical solution to all of this. Mr. McVeigh himself said that most of the buildings in this juncture were built in the 1950s and the 1960s. So I was wondering if any moves have been made to add this to the historical registry of the state of Florida. Because they're 50 years old. Has any moves been made? Not at all?
I don't know.
It is right there on dos.fl.gov that this is a way that we could solve this issue.
We're not, we're away from clapping. We're here to, we're not
Folks,
here to.
Yeah, we're keeping a record, so everything's been recorded, and it's very disruptive when you clap. It also takes a little more time away, so.
Okay, well, I'll
please
put
just-
being disruptive because I think.
It also takes a little more time away, so.
Okay, well, I'll
please
put
just-
being disruptive because I think everyone just heard what I said. Thank you so much.
Can you repeat your name for the record again?
Sandy Marlise McClude.
Sandy? Thank you.
Hello, my name's Dolores King. I have been sworn in. I live at 2538 West 9th Street in St. Andrews, so I'm just a couple of blocks from this property. I agree with what the people have said in opposition to the 10-story buildings. When you think about, this gentleman, I'm sorry, I forgot your name, said that it would probably be no more than 6 stories. Well, I mean, there's no guarantee. That's just, if it says it can be 10 stories, it can be 10 stories. In addition to that, if you think about 6 stories, the condos where the Old Ramada is in St. Andrews, the big condos, they are only about 6 stories, I think. I think I'm not sure of their exact height, but that height on Bayview Avenue, and if it's even more, 100 stories is going to block all of the view. It's going to cause shadows, that are, if you've been out to Panama City Beach and it's a concrete canyon out there, it's like you're going to have, it's just going to take away from, nobody's going to have a view. It's not going to be quaint. It's not going to be historic. It's going to take away, Mr. McVeigh said he wanted to keep it salty. I don't consider those condos salty at all. That's not the salty St. Andrews that we love. I don't understand how that piece of property with 10 stories is going to be, how the infrastructure is going to be able to handle that, and the traffic of that many more cars with the parking and everything, the traffic flow. There's not going to be, it's going to be, it's just going to be crazy. If you've got 10 stories and you've got all these cars for condos, that's a lot. That's a lot. And to put that on the already small roads that we have, it just doesn't fit. It just doesn't fit. Please change the whole thing to the St. Andrews neighborhood and leave it at 4 stories, which I think even 4 stories is a little bit too high, but that would be the best solution.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, I'm Mark Hoffman. I attend church on 11th Street. I'm a Bay County resident. I've been sworn in. A question for the planning staff. What's the name of the planning consultant that the city has hired?
Dover Cole.
Dover Cole. And they're a nationally recognized planning firm?
Yeah, I think so.
So my thought is maybe for the commission to table this and refer this matter to a nationally recognized planning consultant for their input. I think they'd be willing to hear both sides of the matter, the owner and his counsel, but also this planning consultant has advised the city to adopt, is it a new code or a new, what is it?
It's a new zoning district.
So this firm that does work all over the country is advising this change. So I think for your protection as a commission, you should involve them and get their opinion before you act on this.
And just for a little bit of history too, when they worked with the city to develop this new zoning district, a series of workshops were held out in the community, and they obtained comment and input from the residents, and that's kind of what came out of it.
What came out of it?
The new zoning district.
New zone, not the current.
Correct. Well, I don't know. I can't tell you how the current zoning was.
It's not adopted.
I'm not that old.
Speak.
He was tall. Okay. My name is Nancy Hudson, 1701 Mound Avenue, and I have been sworn in. I want to give you just a little bit of history, but I also want to point out a couple of things. One is comprehensive plan policy, and I'm sorry I don't have the number in front of me. There was one not used in the staff findings, was that any development was going to be within the scale and the mass of character of that area. And this is not in the scale and mass of that area and what it is currently. And if you want to talk about Harbor Village, well, that started out to be a 22-story high-rise in 2004. Then it came down to 15. Then the developers who actually bought it worked with us and turned it into what you see today. It is 125 feet at the clock tower peak, if I'm not mistaken. They added the commercial storefronts, and the parking garage was hidden behind those storefronts. So we appreciated the effort they made with no codes in place that they could do that, because at the time there was absolutely no height restriction. And we had been arguing that in St. Andrews since 1995 with the Oaks by the Bay Park property, which the city ended up buying and turning into a park, but there was the threat of a condo there. So we have been to this planning board, to the Downtown Improvement Board, to the Architectural Review Committee, now for 30 years to get a height restriction in place in St. Andrews. Finally have it with the neighborhood plan, and we do want to see that adopted as quickly as possible. In 2011, the city did adopt a 100-foot height restriction. I will tell you that a commissioner has conveyed to me that he thought that the height had been raised at that time, but until 2011, there was no height restriction. So just to clarify that. My last point is that next year, it's time for the comprehensive plan evaluation and appraisal that occurs every 7 years that the city turns into the state of Florida. I guess that comes through the planning board when you make any recommended changes.
Yes,
Yes.
that will come through. And
Okay.
we're probably holding some workshops on that as well.
Okay. Quickly, I'll just tell you, after the last two storms, at the state level, there's already conversation about coastal resiliency and hazard mitigation. Are you going to approve this development agreement just before your ear comes due and before the state finishes their conversation about doing a better job at protecting our coastlines and our people? Because the storm impacts, the insurance rates, the damage is too much for the state to handle anymore. Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to speak on this? Mr. Dare.
My name is John Dara. I live at 3001 West 10th Street, the condos she was speaking of. First thing I'd like to do is say I agree with all of the preceding individuals who have spoken. John McVeigh and I have history.
Mr. Dare, you were also sworn.
Yeah, I was also sworn.
Thank you.
In addition to living at the condos, I bought Mr. McVeigh's property, 2816 West 11th Street, and so I'm interested in it from two different sides. When I was with the DIB, and when it still had responsibility for St. Andrews, there was a great deal of effort that went into let's maintain the character of St. Andrews. And it has character. It may not be historical. That was an interesting comment to perhaps add it. But the importance of maintaining that is really very high. And John's a developer. I've known him, and his dad, who was a first-class individual back when I bought that building. They are great people and have been involved, but I'm concerned with what might come and who's going to take maximum advantage to make a maximum dollar out of that square footage. Having been a developer at one point in time myself, I know the pressure to do that. So to get back to the lesser 44 stories is something that makes all kinds of sense and I support. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak?
I haven't been sworn in.
Solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're to give to be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Yep, 3 minutes.
My name is Pete Cronus. I also live at Harbor Village and I'm a property owner along Beck Avenue. So I want to make just a brief point. Everybody's focused on the potential 100-foot tower, what can happen in that height range going forward. And I would like to just take an opportunity, because I don't get that many opportunities, to point out what can happen in the lower 40-foot. And although it seems harmless, but I would like to take this opportunity to draw your attention to the grocery store outlet. And if we're talking about a pedestrian-friendly community, look at that building. Look at the architecture building. That's a lower, I don't know if it's 40 feet high, it isn't all that high, but that building doesn't respect the pedestrian-friendly nature or the personality that we're all talking about in St. Andrews. In fact, it violates it rudely. So I just want, I can't talk here long, but I just wanted to draw attention to the fact that the below 100, the 40 that you all are accepting, it's all how it is manifested. Somebody just mentioned an architectural review process in Panama City. Does that actually exist? Because I can't understand how the grocery store outlet building would have been allowed if there was architectural review in effect at the time. So my point is made. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have not yet been sworn in. I have not yet been sworn in.
Solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give to be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do.
Thank you. To 3 minutes.
J-
To 3 minutes.
Jan Sedum, 3001 West 10th Street. The condos that were quite popular this evening. The sign directly across from our condos says, Historic St. Andrews. Anybody who comes to the marina, Historic St. Andrews. Anybody driving down Bayview sees all the older historic buildings. And over and above that, although we're not talking about immediate potential construction, development, blah, blah, blah. However, there are currently at least 12 small business owners, 12 small business owners in that footprint that will probably lose their businesses. or some facsimile thereof. So it's not just this high-rise building. There's the small guy and the small lady in their small dreams that also are going to be parked. All I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. 1 sec. Yeah, please. We're about to close comment or we're going to lose a quorum.
Just make it brief, Mr. Pick.
So going along with what he just said, the small businesses, I was wondering if John would commit to, in case this all goes through, which it's a coin toss, would you commit to all the ground floor on Bayview to be retail also?
Okay,
Mr. McVeigh, let Mr. Pick finish. And
That's all I want to know. If
Okay,
we
and
could
then
get a
we'll need to
commitment, if we're going to do this, I mean, there's been a lot of good points. I mean, the size and the smaller the building, the different kind of business is going to go in, and you know what the footprint's going to look like. But if this is going to happen eventually, which who knows, are you guys willing to commit to putting all of the ground floor for small businesses? At least keep that part of St. Andrews what it is, small business and shops and things like that, places for us to go stand out on the street and listen to a band.
Thank you. All right. Close comments to people who have already spoken. Just go give you 30 seconds, and then we're going to turn it back over to the developer.
All right.
We're about to lose a quorum, and we won't be able to make a recommendation.
Yeah, Derek Thomas, 1100 West 10th Street. The picture is a 3-story building, I believe. It's the Shrimp Boat. You're talking about a massive building in there. You already have a space that shuts down and doesn't have enough parking, and the people that live here have already paid a ton of money to try to fix the parking problems there. Just look at this room. You can't pack that many people into a small space that is not equipped for that. And if you're going to have any kind of downtown life or any space for the people that live here to have the opportunity to enjoy themselves, you're giving that away in order to have massive high density without any plan in place. And I agree. I think that the other people who were speaking, the part on the bottom corner of that is a very beautiful historic building, and it makes an atmosphere of a small town and a place that you're changing into something like Chicago or Detroit, or just taking it and making it massive high density without a plan for where that is. And it doesn't fit in a community that has a lot of space. You're taking a very, very small part of the city and you're turning that into super high density when it doesn't need to be. It could be spread out throughout the entire city.
Thank you.
My name is Ashley Warner. I have been sworn in. I live at 2203 Beck Avenue. I agree with everything that everyone has said. I just wanted to state that my family's been here since the 1800s. They built St. Andrews. My great-grandfather built the first skating rink there. We ran a company called Marine Electronics Company. I grew up on the corner of 12th and Chestnut. And for someone to come in and say that their family has done something in this community, that they've put so much into this community, I think that we should have more voices from St. Andrews allowed to be heard. Like this right here is overcapacity for fire code. I want there to be some way for everyone's voices to be heard instead of just the people that were allowed to come and stand in this room today. And maybe consider selling the property to somebody that does want to preserve what it is. So that would solve the problem if you would just sell it to someone else who does care about St. Andrews. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for the purposes of the record, I want to just make it known that anyone that was outside that wanted to come into this room is in this room today. So everyone who wanted to attend this hearing is here and in the room is able to participate. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to invite the developer to come back up and answer any of those concerns.
Yeah, I'll try to be brief, just to point on a few things. Again, we're not trying to change anything. We're trying to lock in and live by what is existing today, which, it does say 100 feet plus the 25. We're willing to concede and go to the 40 on the Beck Avenue side. And just to, touch on a few of these points, if we lock in what the St. Andrews Downtown District is today, residential dwelling units our restricted from the ground floor if you're facing Beck Avenue. So that can only be commercial retailer office uses anyway, and that's what would be locked in for the next 10 years. We don't know what the city commission is going to do with the neighborhood district until that's officially done. So we are fine locking that in. And there is an additional requirement in here as it is today. Maintain and promote the historical architectural character through the scale and massing of the buildings, use historic design elements that are complementary to the neighborhood character. So all that stuff is already in here, and we're fine with that. And that's what any, when this becomes a development someday in the future, these are the regulations they'll have to live by. So, I mean, that would come at the development order stage and later approvals. But all we're wanting to do today is enter into this development agreement to preserve the rights that my clients have today, preserve their development rights. And that's it. So, I don't want to add anything.
The only thing I wanted to touch on was we were talking about if there are going to be retail shops or something. There's no development plan. We don't have any idea of what's going to go on that property. I mean, I think the best thing would be is retail around the whole property, obviously on Bayview and on Beck. That would make a lot of sense. But we don't have a development plan or a development order. We're just looking at the future, hopefully to find the right developer to make something happen there. Any other questions that I could try to answer?
We've gotten to the part of the hearing where they've been able to have the rebuttal, and now, unless you've got anything else to say, Mr. Obos, Mr. Chairman, it's time for you all to deliberate.
Thank you. And just keep in mind, this board's making a recommendation to the city commission. It'll be heard on their public hearing December 10th in the county commission building. Is there any other questions from the board? Do I have a motion?
I guess first what I'll say is that it's very difficult to be sitting up here. As a reminder, we are all volunteers. We're not on a commission. We're not elected. We're not paid. This is something that we do to preserve our community and make recommendations to the city commission. So I hope you all understand that. I think that St. Andrews is probably one of our most vocal neighborhoods in a very positive way. There's a lot of invested people, a lot of families who have been there. And I think through all of the workshops and the effort of the planning board previously shows that there is a dedication to preserving that area. But this is a very difficult discussion and decision for this group. I think right now there are a lot of unanswered questions that this group has, and thus, I think that's what kind of some of the additional public hearings with the city commission will have as well. So anything that happens today, that it's not the final decision. I encourage you all to go to the commission meeting and say exactly what you said today, because they are kind of the next step in this process.
Based on some of the concerns that were expressed, one of which is having retail on the Bayview side, if Mr. McVeigh wanted to modify the agreement, is that something that could be tabled?
Or we can recommend that the agreement's modified to be ratified later, correct?
You've got choice A and B right there. You can just make the recommendation. If you wanted to table it to suggest further modifications to it, you could do that. That would mean it would have to come back to this body for another hearing.
Sure. I would like to make that recommendation that on Bayview, we also have it require residential, retail, excuse me, on that side.
So your recommendation then would be if the agreement goes forward to the city commission this evening, that it would be all retail on the Bayview and the Beck Avenue side.
Yes, correct. On the lower level. Yep.
Okay.
Is that a
So then the next point would be, are you making a recommendation to approve or recommend approval to the city commission based with that modification then?
Based on that modification, I would make a motion to approve based on the modification with it retail on the Bayview as well as the Beck Avenue side.
Okay.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
Clarify, is that because it is right now Beck, commercial, retail, or office uses. So you want to be consistent on Beck and Bayview?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep.
That doesn't address the height.
All right, I'm sorry,
we're talking about a height restriction, right? And y'all
I'm sorry, we're closed.
No, they're talking about the entire development agreement, but the public hearing part is closed. So it's their turn to discuss this and deliberate, and then the city commission will make the ultimate decision. No.
Discussing something that wasn't, we weren't talking about.
So there's been a motion so far.
Pass the gavel so I can make a second.
Sure.
So a motion and second.
All right, so the motion before you then is to approve the development agreement or recommend approval to the board, to the city commission with the modification that the entire first floor on Beck Avenue and Bayview all be retail.
Retail office or.
Retail office or is.
Yes.
So
As the code
you're
permits.
saying I agree with the 10-story tall building?
We're agreeing.
I agree with the height.
The motion is to leave the current standards in place with exception of the development agreement.
Before, okay, folks, we're not going to continue to do this. The board has heard the evidence. As I explained at the beginning, we treat this as a quasi-judicial proceeding, which means it is akin to a court. So we've taken evidence, we've listened to all the comments. This commission, the planning board, makes a recommendation to the city commission. They are recommending based on the entire agreement, which means all of the elements of the agreement, the height, the parking, all of those things that are included in that agreement. So far, the motion and the second is to approve it as it has been presented to the board. That means with the 10 years, because you didn't discuss that, but that's the recommendation. With one modification to the city commission, that there be Bayview Avenue also have the same retail requirements that Beck Avenue has. That's been the motion, and there's been a second on that. And so there's not yes, ma'am, there was. And we're not going to have any further discussion either.
Do you have a quorum?
Yeah. So motion and second, and please take roll.
Board Member Stamps?
No.
Board Member Rich?
Yes.
Chairman Newbauer?
Yes.
So the recommendation passes 2-1.
Now, please, the public hearing is at the city commission offices, December 10th, at the county offices, I'm sorry. Meetings at the county office, December 10th, is at 8 a.m.?
It's at 4 p.m.
You want to recess while we allow these folks to clear out?
Still have.
Item H.
We're gonna talk first? Are you good? You gotta present.
We ready?
Yeah, we're ready.
Okay.
Item H.
Follow that. Well, while she's getting ready, if y'all remember at the last planning board meeting, or in October, we had a briefing from Kimley Horn, our consultant for the transportation impact fee study. And now the study has, the final draft has been completed. And we are, and they'd like to present that final study, and we request a recommendation at the end from the planning board. So I'll hand it over to Hadley and
Oh, you gotta go? Okay.
All
right.
You guys. So.
Yeah, we need to, yeah, we need
Yeah.
to.
So we're just still
Last
listen to the presentation, but we're going to go ahead and make a recommendation based on previous. As we're about to lose our quorum, so. Do I have a motion to?
So the request is that the board recommend approval of the transportation impact fee study to the city commission.
And so you've been provided that, those documents in your agenda package, you've reviewed them, had an opportunity, if you have any questions for the experts that are here. If not, then you can make your motion and move forward.
Is there any questions from the? Okay. All right. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve.
Second.
All right.
Quickly, yeah. Come on.
I'm interested in the impact fees. One of the things they commented on was the impact fees could be waived for affordable housing. So the question is, can you waive impact fees for everyone? Is affordable housing a niche that doesn't have to have impact fees? So in other words, it becomes subjective if you have an impact fee waiver. And I just wonder how do you want to address that? And I thought the fees were really high, by the way.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Obos, for educating Mr. McNeil. Probably knew the answer anyway.
All right. We have a motion to say, please take roll.
Board Member Stamps?
Yes.
Board Member Rich?
Yes.
Chairman Newbauer?
Yes. Okay.
All right. If you need to leave, you can go, but we do need to do our public comment
Yes.
start. We don't need a quorum for public comment. No, thank you for the last moment there.
Still want to hear it?
Well,
If you want to briefly, because I'm sure there's a few people participating or watching that may
Sure.
see it as well.
For the sake of the record and general interest, we'll do a quicker version.
Sure.
This was the overview, project intro, introduction to impact fees, a brief introduction of the methodology, and just next steps and discussion. So we'll probably skip a couple of things, but basically just kind of recapping for you how we got here, what the calculations are, and if there's any additional policy decisions that could influence. The proposed impact fees, since, as we heard, they're quite governed by statute, there's a lot of limitations. My name is Hadley Peterson, project manager, urban planner with Kimley Horn. I'm out of Tallahassee. My local partner is here with me.
Hi, Vincent Spar from the Panama City Beach Office.
And you heard from him in your last meeting, so should feel very familiar. We'll breeze through anything you might have heard then. Based on your recommendation today, we'll move forward with City Commission first reading and then adoption. Impact fees, for those that don't know, are a one-time payment that addresses the needs of a growing community in a more targeted way than your general fund, derived from ad valorem taxes. They've been used in the state of Florida since the 80s.
Mr. McNeil, could you guys step out for a second so we can, if y'all are going to talk, so we're
As we discussed, they're quite governed by statutes. There's a lot of limitations around impact fees, what they can or cannot be used for. They cannot be used for operation, repair, maintenance, to pay off debts, or fund previously approved projects. These are a different fee than utility fees, concurrency, density bonuses, etc. As I mentioned, they are a one-time development fee, and they're based on a number of units or square footage in order to be proportional to the impact they're causing. There's a wide variety of the ways the city could choose to apply these fees, as long as it directly relates to the capacity and impact. On your screen, you see several. In the detailed report, we go through those as well. Why now? The transportation impact fee will require new development to fund infrastructure that's necessitated by this new growth. Around the state of Florida, 2/3 of counties already have an impact fee in place. Most building permit issuing jurisdictions do as well, then that's cities, towns, etc. So this is very normal, and we see developers come into communities across the state and pay these fees. Methodology, you want to quickly breeze through it?
Yeah, so this is just a little bit more depth than we talked about at the last meeting, but again, I'll sort of skim through. We did divide the areas of the city into Panama City proper, which is sort of the historical and southern area, and Panama City North, which is the area around the industrial park up 231. Some of the assumptions that went into the calculations were all of the kind of base factors that are required by statute. You can see them there on this slide, and they're in the document as well. We've got them kind of divided on here. None of these are actually different for the two areas as is shown on the table. Some of the other factors that go into the rates that you'll see a little bit later are different for those different areas, which is why there are some different fees. The overall capacity calculation or fee calculation, pardon me, is based on the capacity consumed by a development times the cost of that capacity. And then there is a credit taken out for other sources of city income that do go towards transportation improvements already. Big, long calculations, we try to throw some figures in there to make this a little bit more consumable, but we'll get into each of these on the subsequent slides here. But ultimately, it's kind of working each of these individual factors down to one number that's there on the left: the capacity consumed, the cost per vehicle mile of capacity, and then those credits. So the capacity consumed is based on trip rates and trip length. So ultimately, any kind of development has different characteristics that lead to that development generating a different number of trips. So, for instance, a single family home generates a different number of trips than a fast food restaurant. There are also different trip lengths, and we use some statewide database with trip lengths based on use. That's all a complicated algorithm of cell phone data and Bluetooth origin destination type stuff that helps us kind of calibrate those numbers down at the local level. And so, again, a single family average trip length is a little bit different than a fast food restaurant average trip length. And there's also a percent new trips in this calculation. That just accounts for the fact that a fast food restaurant or a gas station or a coffee shop may have some non-new trips. They call them pass-by trips. So those developments are not charged for trips that were already on the road because they are not generating those trips. And so that's why we take that percent out. And then you see the divided by 2 up there. That's just to account for the fact that any trip from one location to another is not going to get double counted in this formula when we calculate those impact fees. The discount factor it pertains here, but it's fairly negligible, pardon me. Usually that is to account for trips onto the interstate network. There's very few of the daily trips that go into these calculations in Panama City that are using I-10. So the capacity calculations, the cost per vehicle mile of capacity was calculated based off some recent project trips, information we got from DOT, from Bay County, and from the city. And basically we took those trips, determined what those projects, determined what their overall costs were and how many vehicle miles of capacity they added, and calculated a dollar per vehicle mile capacity. And that's in the bottom right there. I think it's about $3.5 million per vehicle mile of capacity. We also determined the capacity added per lane mile. So for each of those projects, again, we took a look at what the capacity was before, what the capacity was after, and determined from that how much vehicle capacity is added per lane mile. And so that number was about 13,700, and 3.5 million divided by the 13,700 is that $252 per vehicle mile of capacity in Panama City. The credits, again, this is where we make sure we're not double counting, double charging our developers. So ad valorem taxes that are collected and then paid towards transportation improvements were taken out of or granted as a credit in the calculation. So you can see on that top there, the ad valorem taxes less than 1% overall paid toward transportation improvements. And so we did take that reduction, and there's also a small reduction for the estimated fuel tax that goes towards those transportation improvements. Hand it back to Hadley.
With that, There we go. With that, we developed a proposed fee based on that methodology that you see here today. So the way that the impact fee would work is each land use would have an impact fee based on its unit. And those units differ based on the land use. So you see selected land uses here in the report that was attached to the agenda item. You can go through all of them. These are just based on development orders and development that the city is seeing. And like I mentioned, these are per unit. And just for reference, because I know at our last board meeting, someone had asked, how many jurisdictions do this? Do developers really pay these fees? The average for a 2,400 square foot home in the state of Florida right now is just over $4,000. So this is in line with the statewide average. It may seem a little high regionally, but we see that areas that are seeing increased growth do see increased impact fees because they need it. And so this is the proposed fees. So I guess we can stop here and ask if you have any questions on how this was calculated or these fees.
My only question I remember we talked about it briefly last time. This applies to new developments, but like an existing platted development that was already there, it doesn't apply to, or how does that work? Because you're not really.
It applies to when someone requires a development order. It would be payable then. However, there are some developments that this would not be subject to. Really, Sweet Bay. So Sweet Bay, back when the development agreement was approved in 2013, at the time undertook a mobility study and committed to off-site transportation improvements in their development agreement. And so they're essentially locked in. We can't then assess them another transportation impact fee because but otherwise, yes, if they come to apply a development order for us, they would pay a impact fee.
And this you saw last time as well, but just a kind of hypothetical situation where if the city had had an impact fee in place before the building permit was issued for any of these developments, this is kind of the hypothetical fee the city could have received from that. So this is just to help gauge the scale of fee we're talking and the types of development.
And to be clear for those attending, we did not collect this. That's if we had the
If
transportation
this fee was in place, this is completely hypothetical. This was not collected, but just to help you see what could have happened.
Is there a process for like a redevelopment, like on a, for example, residential house that gets destroyed and then rebuilt, or a development that's existing that may have had impact fees collected before but gets demolished for a higher, better use? Is there any process?
And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that would be spelled out in the ordinance if there was a house on a property that was destroyed and is rebuilt within 6 months, a year. They would not
apply to a certain amount of time frame.
But because there's no new impact.
Sure.
Is the way I see it.
And there's some guidance in statute as well, but all of that would be included in the ordinance. And so with that, if you want to discuss, the question here is a lot of jurisdictions do waive transportation impact fees because that is guided by statute. And so we just, for the record, for affordable housing, wanted to kind of confirm that on the record. And then impact fees are very heavily controlled by statute. So if you wanted to discuss any ways to incentivize development you would like to see, we wanted to open the floor to putting that on the record as well. I don't know if you want to dive into this.
We've already made our recommendation.
Yep. So with that, we are here today. We will move forward to City Commission first reading of the ordinance. And so we'll be working with the city to develop that ordinance. The city is going to write it, but we'll provide expert guidance. And then we'll come to January Commission second reading adoption hearing if needed, depending on how all of that goes.
I anticipate that at least some of the commissioners will want to explore the idea of waiver for affordable housing. that seems to be a topic of concern to them, so.
You don't anticipate them adopting it in January, even with their day-long meetings?
We'll try.
Nothing, that's all.
So with that, are there any other questions?
Nope, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Hadley, Vince.
Appreciate you
Thank you.
guys. Thanks for working through us. Next time we won't put you last.
Yeah.
All right, this brings me to audience participation. Anybody here wish to address this board? Seeing none, the meeting is. What? Okay, stuck up.
I'll just say briefly, Mark Hoffman, Bay County resident. I appreciate all the work that everyone in the room is conducting. It seemed a little rushed. You had one member not present. You had another member who was trying to exit early. You had a room full of people who all expressed concerns with item G. I was here for item A. I didn't even know about item G. It just seemed rushed. I respect that you all work 9 to 5 and your commission is volunteer, but something of this magnitude, my thought is take your time, table it if you need to. I don't know if you know Dover Coal, but I've met them. They're very intelligent. Everything that they've put together in a recommendation is, I think, comes from a place of expertise. So on something as big as this, it couldn't hurt to take your time and get some additional input before pushing something forward. And then you have another set of consultants here who presented after you voted. That seems questionable. I don't know. We have a lawyer in the room who's also ready to leave, but
at the last.
No, sir. I'll tell you. No, we've had this presentation before. They have all the documentation in the record, and your comments regarding Dover Coal and sending it to another person to review it are. It's not fair to the staff that sits here every day and goes through our code and knows this inside and out. What Dover Coal did was gathered a bunch of comments. They did great work for us, and they gathered stuff together, and they came up and they presented what the community said was what they wanted. And this staff, the experts on this staff who review it every day, have been through that, and they also administer that. So I think it's unfortunate that you don't recognize the expertise that sits right here in front of you to suggest that it needs to go to someone else.
If you heard what I've said, at the beginning, I said I respect everyone in this room and all the input you've put in. So again, I respect you all. I just thought, as someone who was here for item A, just observing what happened in items G and H, it felt a little rushed.
And also, just so the planning board members receive the agenda packets well in advance of the meeting.
Along with public comments that,
and along with the public comments that are sent
weren't
to us.
able to attend or may have attended.
They actually receive executive summaries 2 weeks out in advance. And then
about 2 weeks. We try to get them. So as soon as we have the agenda kind of somewhat, almost finalized, we go ahead and send out executive summaries with the requests, the location, basically everything you see in the staff reports minus a recommendation and analysis. So we do our best to ensure that prior to coming here, they have plenty of time to go by sites. If people come up to them, that's one of the reasons too we started doing that, is because people start hearing, people hear things and they're approached. So we want them to have some idea of what might come up on the agenda. So we do our best to try to give them as much information as possible prior to the public hearing date.
Yeah, that's great, and I applaud that. I think I'll state one last time, it was a 2-to-1 vote and there was a member missing. So again, if you have a room full of people who all, clearly were questioning the decision, it just felt rushed. So thank you for all your work.
I'll respond
Pre-
to that a
appreciate
little
that.
bit too. So two things. One, we knew we were losing a quorum and this board is just making a recommendation on that item to the city commission who makes the final determination. On items that was like a variance, which this board has final say other than appeal on, then that would have probably most certainly been tabled by this committee. And on that too, we also had to weigh the fact that by not recommending this approval, we would have been taking away existing property rights from an individual that currently has those. That's hard for me, with a real estate background to recommend, take away property rights. So, and I think you've got, different considerations for that area.
Yep. And, I certainly appreciate your thoughts on all of that. And, again, we are prepared coming into these to where we have information and, we've looked at the data and the request that's been made. So we are prepared coming into this. So.
Anyone else? It's adjourned. Thank you.